16 WAPT News begins with breaking news.
We do have breaking news this afternoon. Governor Tate Reeves updating you now on the Easter Sunday storm damage and the state's ongoing strategy to slow the spread of COVID-19. Let's listen in.
Director Michelle, General Boyles, and several others joined us as we traveled throughout South Mississippi, making stops in Soso, Mississippi, in Bassfield, and several others. And I will tell you, it was devastating. But those Mississippians that I spoke with are not defeated. Many lost their homes. Many saw treasured property destroyed. Too many of them lost loved ones. Still, the Mississippi spirit that unites us is strong. They will never stop looking out for their neighbors, and they will never stop protecting one another. I'm inspired daily by the strength of the people of Mississippi, but especially today. And I just want to thank all of you for being who you are: strong, courageous, resilient, sacrificial, caring, and united. We will come through this together. I'm going to speak in just a moment about our plans for schools, but I want to quickly announce another important step in our recovery efforts. As this disease spreads and people pick up the pieces after deadly tornadoes, we cannot forget the serious harm this has done to working folks in Mississippi. Our friends and neighbors, especially people with less to start with. It has been horrifying to me to watch the work of decades fall apart. All of these Mississippi jobs gone in the blink of an eye. Tens of thousands of families who want to work now on assistance or waiting for assistance. We pray and hope their jobs will all come back as our economy reopens. We know that it will not be so simple. I have dedicated my time to fighting this pandemic and managing state government's response. We know that there is much more to do. We will stay in the fight. We also know that we need some of Mississippi's top minds studying the path forward. We need the private sector to lead the way in charting a path for economic recovery. We need Mississippians helping Mississippians. And we need answers about what our new economy will look like. I have asked a trusted group of our state's top business minds to do just that. Under the Restart Mississippi umbrella, they are going to develop a series of recommendations and goals for our recovery and our new economy. They will study the impact of COVID-19 on our workforce, and they will study the impact of COVID-19 on our small businesses, and they will help us to recover day by day. One of Mississippi's business icons, Joe Sanderson of Sanderson Farms, will be the chairman. Representatives from every region will be on the board. Large economic drivers and small community businesses will come together in this effort. They will look at the impact on every industry, on every geographical area, and every community in our state, because we know they will not be the same. Each will require tailored solutions. They will help us to transform and rebuild our economy in this new time, and they will be a source of wisdom for me, independent of government, as we consider how to help those most affected by this pandemic. I'm grateful for every leader who is stepping up to serve in this way, on top of their duties to their companies. It will make a difference for countless Mississippi families. Now, in regards to the plan for education in Mississippi, I know how hard teachers, students, all their staff, and how hard parents have been working during this dangerous time. You have my deepest respect and my sincere admiration. It has been so encouraging to see the efforts of our education community to protect the people of Mississippi while ensuring that learning continues to take place. School buildings in Mississippi will remain closed for the rest of the semester. That does not mean school is canceled. Distance learning will continue, and I will be asking every school to submit plans to show that they are doing just that and to step up and share the best practices that we have learned over the past several weeks. I know that they are committed to this task. We're also going to ask educators to prepare plans for classes in the summer or early fall. Not as a mandate, and it won't be for everybody, but we know that this virus doesn't hit everybody equally. The economic damage doesn't hit everyone equally. And despite the best efforts of our education community, this hasn't hit all students equally either. There are many who are surging ahead during this time, getting hours of instruction every day. There are others in circumstances that make that much harder. Not everyone has fancy webcams and fast internet. Not everyone has parents who can also become full-time teachers. Those are blessings, but we cannot expect that every household will be equipped to handle this the same. We're trying to reach everybody, but we have more work to do. I want you to know, I am very concerned about those kids. It's the reason that these education decisions have weighed so heavy on me. We must find a way to take extra care of them. I hope that the option of in-person summer or early fall instruction can help. I know our education community will do whatever it takes to make sure Mississippi kids don't fall behind. To every teacher that has gone above and beyond in these trying times, thank you. To every bus driver that has delivered meals or learning packets, thank you. To every parent who has been stretched to their limit to take care of their kids, thank you. None of your work goes unnoticed. We are in the fight on multiple fronts. We have several emergencies ongoing. We also have tremendous resources, the greatest of which is you, the people of Mississippi. I am grateful for all of you every day. I pray for all of you every day. We will get through this together. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Director Michelle to speak about our ongoing emergencies situation.
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor just mentioned, we completed a tour of the storm-damaged areas today. We're able to fly over the storm track of the worst storm track that we had, which was the what we believe to be an assessment still going on of a potential EF4 tornado. There were two storms that really hit along that track. It was obvious from the assessments today that that first storm, the path was much wider. Combined, these two storms had a storm track of almost 90 miles. Is what we found out today after the analysis on crisis track. It was a very dangerous storm, a very long storm that stayed on the ground for an extensive period of time. We had with us on the flight today a representative from FEMA that did initial roof counts and additional assessments. We have a group of 4 teams that will be going out to the field. We'll be conducting joint damage assessments tomorrow to continue to gather data on how many homes we have. Keep in mind that damage assessments have just really started beginning because we're just now, in some cases, still in a response mode. But we've got right now a record of several hundred homes. We know that number is going to go up. A number of businesses, as we could tell today, the devastation to the timber industry has certainly been significant as well. We have approximately 52 people that are being sheltered right now, not in shelters, but Red Cross is providing them alternate places to stay during this period of time. It's a current number that we had, and currently we only have 1 shelter that's currently open right now in Wayne County. And again, shelters, no need for shelters to be open. We're taking care of food, shelter, and clothing is main priority for those that have been displaced, and most all the needs are being met. Again, we've got resources in all the counties and a lot of cleanup efforts going on right now.
Thank you, Director Michelle. As I mentioned yesterday, I did have a conversation yesterday with the director of FEMA. We are very fortunate to have great relationships with our federal partners. We are working to get the emergency declaration moved with respect to this particular tornadoes that occurred on Sunday afternoon, on Easter Sunday. And I'm confident that we will be continuing to make progress with respect to there. We in Mississippi are used to tornadoes occurring in April of every year. What we are not used to is for those tornadoes to have winds in excess of 200 miles an hour, nor are we used to those tornadoes staying on the ground for some 89 plus miles. That's what happened on Sunday. We were warning on Friday and Saturday as we saw the weather predictions, as our people saw the weather predictions, that the conditions were really not favorable for our state on Sunday afternoon, and that has proved to be true and to be accurate. But I can't tell you often enough how moved I was by the cooperation and the hard work of Mississippians throughout the south part of our state today. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Dobbs, who is going to give us an update on our COVID-19 response.
Thank you very much, Governor. So in regard to COVID-19, right now we have reported 3,087 cases with 111 deaths. Of that number of cases, 56.2% of all cases identified are African Americans, and 67% of all deaths are in African Americans. If we look at our testing numbers, as of April 12th, 2020, in the state of Mississippi, we have completed 37,733 tests for COVID and look forward to opportunities to ramp up our capabilities to do even more testing. If we look at our healthcare capacity, at present we have 154 individuals, COVID or COVID suspects, 154 in ICUs. We have 310 open ICU beds, along with 638 open ventilators. There are 99 COVID patients or suspects currently on mechanical ventilation or respiratory support. As I mentioned before, we think that we're kind of at the peak of activity right now. We won't really know until it's over, until we see it in the past. But certainly we know that the number of cases will precede the number of deaths and severe illness because it takes a while. This is the time right now where it's important for us to be most diligent in our social distancing, following the guidelines of our shelter-in-place order. We want to get through this. You're not doing it just for yourself, you're doing it for your family. So please, especially right now, follow the guidelines very closely. If you want to get back to normal, now's the time to act responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dobbs. I just want to relay a story to the people of Mississippi. As I was on the ground in Jeff Davis County earlier today, I had the occasion of a young lady, an African-American female, who walked up to me. She had a mask on, Dr. Dobbs. She had a mask on, and she said, "I just want you to know how much I appreciate you," which I certainly enjoyed her saying that. That meant a lot to me. But she also said that she and her husband, who lived there in that county, had lost their church because of the storm. He's a pastor. She also told me that she was 14 days in recovery from COVID-19. She told me how difficult it was having the virus, how oftentimes she didn't know if she was going to make it or not. But she also, with tears in her eyes, told me that there is hope. And that was something that was very special to me. So with that, I'll answer questions. Scott.
Back to the education announcement. Can you say, or at this point, does that mean students will simply be graduated to the next level? Or are we looking at extending this semester longer to try to make up some ground and measure them?
Well, the vast majority of students are participating in learning today. I have been in pretty regular contact with Superintendent Wright, with our State Board of Education. I've communicated with our public health officials. I've communicated with teachers and superintendents. And I believe, for the most part, the majority of kids are continuing to learn. And so I don't anticipate that just because the school buildings are going to remain closed, that does not mean, at least for the rest of this semester, which is basically out until mid-May. And just to give you an idea into my thought process is when you think about the fact that our shelter-in-place order is basically in effect until April the 20th. We're having conversations about what we're going to do with that as well. We'll make an announcement over the next 2 or 3 days going into the weekend on the shelter-in-place order. The President's guidance for the country has been to ensure that we continue with very, very strong social distancing and until April the 30th. As you'll recall, it was originally 15 days to slow the spread, and then they added an additional 30 days, which was the entire month of April. And so when you start getting out beyond April 30th, you move until May the 1st, which is, I believe, a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. by the time you look at that next Monday, you're talking about only 2 or 3 weeks left in this particular semester. And so even though the buildings are going to be closed for the most part for the rest of the semester in terms of bringing kids into the schools, I anticipate that learning will continue. And I anticipate that if you are a senior and you are doing what your teachers are asking you to do, and you are doing what your superintendent and your school boards are requiring you to do, that you will be able to graduate and you will be successful at that. We're not going to have end of the year test. That's already been waived by the State Department, and it's also been waived by the federal government, or has been approved by the federal government. And so we want to continue to see learning. But one of the things that I want everyone to fully understand is that, and I want Dr. Dobbs to speak to this as well, as we look to the various things that we have done over the past 6 to 8 weeks to slow the spread of the virus, I think, though the data is not complete today, but as we look back, the decision to not take kids out in the community, bring them into a central location, and then let them stay in that central location, many times 15, 20, 25 in a classroom, and then take those individuals and send them back into the communities and do that every single day, probably has had more impact on slowing the spread of the virus than any other decision that we've made. Again, that's my opinion. I believe it's true. I've looked at the data, but that's certainly, we will know more 3 months from now as we look back and we have complete data, but at least it appears that when you start looking at the number of cases and the onset of those cases, you know, everybody wants to look at how many new cases we report today or how many new cases we report tomorrow. Given the ways in which we are getting reporting from different labs and different testing sites, it's really not all that relevant, because what is most relevant is exactly when the onset of the virus takes place. You want to speak to that?
Oh, yes, thank you, Governor. If you consider the benefit of school closures, there's some debate in the public health community, but taken along with some clear benefit in other scenarios, and if you think about children who are asymptomatically shedding and can take it to older adults and stuff like that, it makes a ton of difference to make sure that we don't have those mechanisms of rapidly spreading the virus. And then if we think about coming out from under the shelter in place, not having that added sort of influx of cases into all areas of the community is going to be very important. Retrospectively, as we look at the time course of when did the curve start sort of slowing down, data so far would suggest that the shelter in place happened way too late in the time course to really be that impactful. But the other things like school closures and some of the social distancing stuff early on probably would have been the most impactful. Just based on a temporal perspective, it's hard to know for sure, but that would be suggested.
Are you saying that we should have had the shelter in place sooner? I want to understand that clearly. You said we probably waited too late to shelter in place?
No, sir, I don't mean that at all.
Yeah, let me understand, please.
Yeah. So if we look at the things that seem like they made a good difference is, you know, we started early with the school closures. We started early with the social distancing. And that, you know, if you look at our curve now, compared to where it was predicted to be, it's much lower, which is very fortunate, especially with regards to hospital utilization, that sort of thing. The shelter in place was a very useful addition because it kind of got us over the hump a little bit. You know, we think that most people people's lives were radically changed before the shelter in place. And when we did the shelter in place, it didn't actually change that much on the previous executive order as far as like essential businesses. So that was one additional step to kind of help push down on it so that we could get through this. And hopefully within a few weeks, we'll be well on the backside of this thing.
The model that the White House was recommending that we look at, and we were doing lots of data and have been doing lots of data analysis internally as well, but the IHME model, which is the University of Washington model, over the last 12 days has reduced the expectations in Mississippi in terms of total number of deaths by 90%. And when you look at the number of new cases that we are getting on a daily basis, what I would tell you is, it is my view that, and I think the data proves this, when we issued the social distancing guidelines, people adhered to it. Now, was it 100%? No, but we don't have 100%. We don't have 100% of the people adhere to our murder laws either. But we, by and large, Mississippians adhere to social distancing. They got in their vehicles, they went to work, they drove home, and while we're still concerned about the long-term health care facilities and those where the populations are most vulnerable, we are seeing significantly fewer new cases on a daily basis than I think most in America would have expected us to see. Cordelia?
This is somewhat in follow to Scott's question, but will there be any kind of guidance from the Department of Education regarding, should it be a pass-fail situation versus what we typically would see in terms of grading for these students? I think a lot of parents, I'm seeing even, they're already asking, well, what does this mean for my child? Do they just get a pass or fail on to the next grade? Do you anticipate guidance on that?
Yes, we are actually working with the department now. I spoke with the superintendent literally just a few minutes ago, and as well as yesterday, and I think one day late last week as well. We do anticipate we're going to have an executive order over the next couple of days. We're going to work with the leaders in the education community to finalize the executive order. But for planning purposes, I don't think we should expect our young people to be going back into school buildings with large crowds in small rooms over the next 6 weeks or so. And so in terms of exactly what it means, I think that those many kids across the state are actually experiencing distance learning, and some of them are taking tests, and some of them are taking quizzes, and many of them are doing work and turning work into teachers. And many, I heard from a teacher earlier today that was doing a Zoom class, and while maybe not 100% of the kids were participating, many of them were. And so there will definitely be guidance from the State Department of Education within the confines of the state statutes. But we also have 140 plus school superintendents who I know that Dr. Wright has a superintendent's council that she listens to very closely and relays their information and data to me as well. And so we want to ensure, this is critically important. By the way, this is on the minds of at least every Republican governor, because I spoke with them last night and listened. This is weighing heavy on everyone because no one wants to shut down our schools. No one wants to shut down our schools as much as I don't want to shut down our schools, because I have seen the tremendous progress that's being made by our students, by our teachers, by our administrators, and by our parents over the last 10 years. When you talk about the fact that we were #1 in the nation back in October in terms of gains for 10-year growth numbers and reading and math results, it's critically important that we not take a step back. And so we're going to continue to re-up our efforts and make sure that every school district is looking at a plan to continue learning through the end of May. But also we're going to ensure that we have a plan in place to deal with any kids that didn't get quite as much learning as they needed to here in April and May of 2020. And so if that's a plan for remediation for certain students, if that's planned for more and longer class days or whatever it takes, we're going to work hard with our education community to take those dedicated teachers that we know we all have in the classroom and make sure they're doing what's most important in that classroom, and that's teaching young minds. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Governor. I'd like to try to get you to elaborate on the summer class plans you talked about. Does that count for all students having to go in there, or if not, how would we determine who goes into summer classes and who doesn't without really having any testing going on? We're
going to work with our local superintendents and see, because it's going to depend on how much distance learning actually occurred. In some districts and in some areas and in some schools, they may feel very comfortable with where the vast majority of their kids are, and if that's the case, that's fine. We look at it not as a mandate, but as an option. It's something that we ought to be thinking about. It's something that we ought to be talking about as a state. Is that something that in July that if we had 8 or 10 people in a classroom to sit down and learn, it wouldn't be every teacher involved, and it may be on a mandatory basis, maybe on a voluntary basis, very well could be. We just want to do everything we can to reach those kids that need the help that they get, because the fact is that this virus is not in Mississippi due to anything that these young people have done, and therefore we don't want them to fall behind.
So parents could expect their individual superintendents making the decision as saying, hey, your kids do have to come back to the school campus this summer?
That is always a possibility. Individual districts have that option. You know, there were some individual school districts that had shut down individually before the state came out and did so. You'll recall that my initial action was right after spring break. We shut down schools for 1 week, and then we analyzed it, and then we shut down the schools for 4 weeks after that. And so we're 5 weeks into that, and we've got obviously another 3 or 4 weeks left in the school year. And so there are certainly options that superintendents have. We want to make sure that our kids do not fall further behind relative to our peers.